There are a lot of racing games on the market, but I feel like you'd be hard-pressed to find one as famous or as unique as the Mario Kart franchise. Even though it's been apparently over 15 years of development, we finally have a new Mario Kart with Mario Kart World. It's been out for around a little bit over a week at the time of recording this, and there have been a lot of changes to the infamous items from the game. I think there's around 28 of them, and a lot of the ones from the old games have changed, some for the better and a lot for the worst. So today, we're going to be ranking all 28-ish of them in order of my least favorite item to my favorite, of course, taking into account the reworks. Really quickly, it's worth pointing out that this is going to be a bit of a different video. While I'm working on more longer, big projects, this one's not going to be heavily scripted. This one just has bullet points, and that's what we're going to be working off of. So, if it sounds like less professional, even more so than usual, I apologize, but there's your reasoning. Lastly, I'll be going into this assuming you have some understanding of Mario Kart and how its items kind of function, at least in past games. I'm not going to be going super in-depth on each one for the sake of time. Speaking of, let's just get right into it, because I know it's what you're all here for. Starting off, we have an item that I think, quite frankly, no one has ever liked getting, but it's only seemed to get worse and worse as time goes on, and that is the blooper. Legitimately, there are so few cases where I find that the blooper is something that affects the race. First off, it's a rare item, which is good because you didn't want this to be super common to be really annoying, but that means that whoever gets it is going to feel very unlucky because they could have gotten basically any other item, and instead you got the blooper. Nobody who gets the blooper is excited, and nobody who gets hit by a blooper is excited either. Mostly because it usually doesn't affect the race too much. The only reason it's going to be semi-notable right now is because the game is so new, but give it like a month of people who play this game quite a lot, or heck, even like half a year for people who play it on again, off again, and the blooper is not going to be doing too much to them. Not to mention, just like the older games, it can be cleared off with boost panels, mushrooms, and dipping a little too much into the water, so the blooper is an item that I think a lot of people can agree is just probably here for the sake of it being an older classic item, but quite honestly, I find this to be an item no one wants to get, and no one really cares when it's actually attacking them, so definitely the bottom of the barrel item. Only the second item in the list, but I think it's probably going to be kind of controversial, but we'll get to that. That is the blue shell or spiny shell. Yes, a very infamous and famous part of Mario Kart, what have you, and it's very important for balancing, always has been, but we're not getting to that argument here. We're talking purely from the list of items, what you want to receive. It's very, very, very rare that the person who gets the blue shell is happy to be getting the blue shell. That doesn't mean that the blue shell isn't useful or isn't important for the balance of the game or as the franchise as a whole. The blue shell is very important for that. I'm not going to get into that here, though, as I said, for the sake of time. But you never want to be the one to get the blue shell. Not to mention, if you're the one who's used to front running or really likes front running like I do, blue shells are just your hated enemy from that alone, even if they can now be destroyed with super horns and whatnot. No one likes the blue shell, and to be fair, it did sort of get buffed back in Mario Kart 8 because now it goes across what the game dictates to be the center lane of a road and can hit multiple people, not just the person in first. So it is still more useful than the blooper, hence why it's above it, but I think it's just more niche than anything else, and again, the person who gets the blue shell, it's almost never that you're going to be excited to say, hey, I got the blue shell. But again, it's important that it exists, so it's still useful, just not a very great item in my opinion. Next up, we have what I would kind of dictate to be the first item that is negatively affected by Mario Kart World's changes, and that is the coin. The reason it's here is just because, again, it's an item that nobody really wants to get in terms of from an item block. Since those are going to be more rare instances, you can always, of course, just find coins along the road. Now, in Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, coins were a big part of the meta and how you would play the game. Coins would give you an increased speed as long as you had them kept. You could store up to 10 in total, and I believe each individual coin would increase your speed by 0.5%, so for 2 coins you'd be... No, it was 0.5, I think. 0.5%. So if you got 2 coins, you're just gaining a flat 1% increase to speed, which might not sound like much, but keep in mind it stacks up to 10, so then you're going to be going way faster. And anytime you look at like time trials, like world records for Mario Kart 8, you're going to see that collecting coins is a big part of that meta, so that's a big part of that game. Fast forward though till now to Mario Kart World, and now you can hold 20 coins, but the coins have been nerfed in that respect, as now they don't give you as much of a boost. So coins are still important because they still do give you a boost, and I believe getting all 20, I don't know if that makes it like fast, like if it's the same level of speed you get once you reach 10 and 8. I don't think so, from what I could tell. But I don't know for sure. The game's still fairly new, and not all this stuff has been documented yet. But coins are definitely less useful. The main use for coins is actually going to be when you're front running, specifically in first. It's the main time you're going to see them, because basically the game's always going to try to give you a coin for the most part. And a big part of like the tech for the game is holding a coin in your first item slot if like you didn't get a double block. Hitting another block, don't use the coin even if you could use it, because then you'll guarantee not get a coin, because the game won't give you 2 coin items at the same time. No, it's a lot of, you know, talk about coin tech and whatnot, but it's important to know. And the coin can be useful, as I said, because coins are still important, but you can just find them along the field. And as you're about to see with the next 2 items, there are more efficient ways to get coins, and so just a singular coin item is not that great. Thankfully, though, you only find this in higher level placements. As I said, the next 2 are going to be coin related, so let's get into the next one, and it is the mystery block, or the coin block. This is an item that was taken pretty much straight from Mario Kart Tour, which was the phone game, and basically how it works is you will spam like the item button, or the L button in this case, and you'll keep hitting the coin block, and you'll get a bunch of coins, but coins will actually fly out of it as well, like a bunch of them. And go on the racetrack, so that way other racers can actually collect them as well. It's a really interesting item from that perspective, because it's one that can affect not just you, but it'll affect multiple people at the same time. It's kind of like a give and take sort of deal. Unfortunately, it's also not a defense item like the coin, so even though you hold it behind you and it looks like it'd be able to break an item or something, it can't. But that's actually one of the reasons why I think it's lower down for me, is most of the part, when I see people getting it, it's like 9th or earlier, so you're going to be most likely in the crowd. So you're going to be helping a lot of people. Now, you get more coins, of course, from this than just like the single coin, obviously. But I think you get like maybe 10, which is good. That's like half your coin count, right? But you also have to realize you're helping other people out with getting them coins too, and you know, it's just kind of messy. Now, granted, as I said, coins aren't nearly as important, so that works in favor of it not helping people as much, but it also goes against it as it doesn't help you as much. It's kind of just a weird item that I feel like they just put in the game to kind of like support the fact that they really want this game to be, all about being in a huge crowd the entire race. But it's one that I'd rather have this than a single coin, obviously, in lower placements, but you're only going to see it in like mid placements, so it's one you're not probably super happy to get, so it's going to go here. And the last of the coin items, as I said, they'd all be in like a row. We have the golden shell, straight from New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS. There's your fun fact. So this one is very interesting as well. It acts kind of like a blue shell a little bit, in the sense that it will, once you throw it, it'll go to what the game dictates to be the center of the lane, or center of the road, and will progress forward. And eventually, if it goes too far and it doesn't hit anything, it'll like just explode into a bunch of coins. Or it will go for a little bit, because I don't think it'll break right away, but if it hits like another player or something, then it will break, I think. I'm not sure if it breaks right away if it hits somebody immediately. I'll have to look into that. But it's a little better, because when you throw the golden shell, it'll leave a trail of coins behind it, so you obviously can go through the trail and get some coin counter up, right? But similar to the coin box, other people can go through it, and that's part of the problem, is that when you throw the shell, it's obviously going to be faster than your character, right? So when you throw the shell, it's going to be leaving this trail of coins, and you're probably going to get like 3 or 4 easily. But from there, if you're in the crowd, which is, again, the only time I've seen people get this, when they're like lowerish mid placements, maybe, a lot of people are going to just swoop in and take those coins before you can even have a chance to get to it. So you're going to be benefiting people, I think, a lot more with this one in terms of giving them coins. Thankfully, though, this one makes up for it, and why I like it a little bit more in the mystery box is that it is a defense item and it is an offense item at the same time. And for me, that's a bigger deal than just straight up coins and then giving them away. At least in this exchange, you could potentially hit some people and get coins out of them. And I just feel like there's more use cases for the golden shell than the mystery box, personally. But I don't know, maybe we'll kind of just see how the game's meta evolves and if the gold shell ends up having really any use. I feel like by now we're probably out of the items that you most likely aren't going to be super happy with, and ones that you'll either tolerate or still slightly dislike. And first up, we have the triple bananas, which I know it's going to be kind of weird putting them here in front of like the single banana, but I'll kind of give you a reason for that, but stick with me. So triple bananas are very interesting because since Mario Kart, I think it's 7, if you were to get triple bananas, they would like just circle around you like they do now. But in Mario Kart Wii, they'd actually just form a trail behind you, and so that would make it a much better defense item from that standpoint, at least in my opinion, because when you get the trail bananas, you'd be in higher placements, like first, second, or third. So ever since 7, I feel like the trail bananas have been slightly worse as a defense item. Arguably, though, that can be changed because you can always just throw them back, and since they spin around, they technically cover more area, right? But that's just in my opinion. Now, of course, since we have such bigger crowds and you're often going to get trail bananas in like 4th and stuff, them spinning around can be a good thing because that will get people in front of you to be cautious of you and people behind you. So I think that that's kind of a mixed like bag sort of deal. But the problem I have with trail bananas compared to, as you're going to see, the single one and some of the other items, is just whenever I get the triple bananas, I'd rather have basically a single green shell, a triple green shell, because the placements you get the trail banana isn't like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Maybe it's 4th, but that'd be like rare. Usually it's in like 5th or 6th, I've noticed. I'm sure you can get it in higher placements too now, it's just consistency wise. And if I'm in those placements, I really am not super thrilled with triple bananas, because then most likely what you're going to do is just hold on to them as a defense, which is fine, but then you're going to hold on to them until you find something better like a mushroom or the chance for a mushroom or something that's going to be a little bit more useful to you. They are still useful, it's just similar to some of the lower items like the blooper. I just feel like in the placements that you're going to get this item, you would much rather have a lot of other things, so that's why it's below some of the other ones that you're going to see in just a moment. Next up, we have the green shell, which, yes, I know there's going to be some arguments saying, oh, how'd you put the single green shell in front of the trail bananas, then you put the single banana above it, but we'll get to that in due time. So the green shell is a item I feel like either you love or hate. For people who are not very comfortable with this game, who have not played Mario Kart a lot, or just casual basically, which is not a problem, a lot of them infamously do not like the green shell because it's one of the few items that is very common to hit yourself with and just end up causing more harm than good. But it's a very common item you're going to see a lot. The single green shell is decent because, of course, it's a defense, which is always good, but it's also a really good offense. It can cover a wide range of areas. You can throw it in tight like corridors and stuff, and it'll bounce around, and it lasts a decent amount of time bouncing on walls. And it's just, in general, I think a good item, even if you're not super comfortable with it. The more comfortable you get with it, the better it is. And I think the reason that I'm putting it here instead of above some of the other ones is the fact that in a lot of the times when you have the green shell, if you're in like higher placements, like 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, it's most likely not going to be as useful because your targets are going to be singled out and either further away from you than you'd think. So like if someone's really good at front running and you're in 2nd, you get a green shell, it's not going to probably do much for you. I just feel like it's more niche than the single banana and, you know, the triple green shells, which we'll get to in just a moment. So that's going to get put here. So we're kind of going to speed up these next two because I've already made a lot of the points, but I'll kind of describe why they're higher up. So next we have the banana, and then the one after that we have triple green shells. So it goes triple bananas, green shell, single banana, triple green shells. It's kind of like a weird OCD pattern, but that's how I am. So the single banana being better than the triple banana is very much arguable. I'm going to say that it could go back and forth, basically, but my line of thinking is a lot of the time when you get the triple banana, I don't think it's very likely you're going to get a single banana. Of course, if you could, then obviously I'd put the triple banana above it, right? But in most instances where you're going to get the single banana is going to be in like 2nd, 3rd, and 1st, maybe 4th, which are placements that, again, maybe you can get the triple banana, but it has to be pretty rare. But I'm thinking like 1st and 2nd, where you're not going to get the triple banana. In that case, the banana is actually a really nice item, even though it's one I know a lot of people hate. Now, of course, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, banana snipes make it great. I mean, it does. It's a cool thing you can do, but obviously it's not something that casually you're going to be doing that often, right? Or succeeding in. One of the things that makes bananas really good, obviously, is it's a very, very baseline defense item, which is nice. It's not very great for offense, but what's really nice is you can trap the best lines on certain courses pretty well with it. Now, it's a little harder and not as good now as it was in 8 or any of the past games, just now because you can go pretty much anywhere and there's all these new tricking mechanics. But I will say that the banana is really nice because you can even just trap like double boxes and stuff and make it a little harder to find, especially if you do it perfectly. You can make it basically impossible. It's small, but it's nice little things like that you can do that make the banana, I think, more useful than like the single green shell up in higher placements, because you can trap things and make you have like a little bit more of a breakaway. And those small little like micro precision adjustments is what makes Mario Kart, like the getting better at it, so important. It's all these small little things that add together, so I'll put that there. Then for the triple green shell, pretty much the only reason it's higher than the other ones is because it's a better offense, it's a better defense than all the bananas, better defense and offense than both of them. or maybe about the same defense-wise as the triple banana. Not as much, I don't know. It's arguable. What I'm getting at is offense-wise, the triple green shell you'll want any other day than the single green shell, because it's basically like, okay, would you rather have 1 shot at getting a bullseye or 3? Of course you're going to take the 3 shots, right? Because that just gives you a higher chance of hitting. And it gives you defense. It's basically just green shell, but you get more chances, and that's the only reason it's higher. There's basically no difference between it and the green shell otherwise. Now we have another new item that I know can be really good, but I just feel like it's kind of in racing, and that is the hammer. The hammer is a very interesting item. I think it also kind of comes from Tour, if I remember correctly. Basically, it's an item that, I don't know if it's a defense just by holding it behind you, but now you can throw it behind you and have it hit stuff. But you can throw it either in front of you or behind you or whatever, and it'll make like an arc in the air, kind of like the Hammer Bros do when they actually throw it, which is of course what it's referencing. But then it'll hit the ground, and it'll stay in the ground for just a few seconds, and anytime it's in the air, or if it lands on the person, or once it's in the ground, people can hit it and it will slow them down. It's an okay offense item. Defense-wise, it's not very good, in my opinion. But the nice thing about it is generally you're going to get this when you're in the crowd, like 8th or lower, which means it can be useful to harm other people. Or maybe if you see them going for a shortcut, you can try to cut them off, or you can just try to predict movement with it. So it has its uses. Again, I don't have too much to say about this one. Like, it's an alright item. It's just one that, similarly to some of the others, it's like, okay, well, I'll make a use for it, but I feel like I could have had better items in the placements that you're going to get this. Oh boy, now we have one of, I would say probably one of the items that has fallen the worst since 8. The Boomerang Flower. The Boomerang Flower was introduced in 8 and was one of the best offense items in my opinion. It was insanely good in races and in battle especially, but we're mostly going off races here. The really nice thing about the Boomerang that made it so insane was you could throw it 3 times. Like, it would stay around for 3 times. You would throw it. It has decent range, and on the 3rd throw, whether you threw it forward or backward, you'd have 3, but on the 3rd throw, either way, it will not come back to you, it'll just keep going until it either breaks on something or hits somebody and then breaks on them or something. But the really interesting thing about this compared to like green shells is that the Boomerang will pierce. Like, if it hits one player, it will go through them and potentially hit another, and especially in like a big crowd game like, you know, World compared to Deluxe, you can kind of see why maybe they nerfed that a little bit. But it's even worse than that because the Boomerang in 8, and even in this one, can go through items like triple green shells, triple bananas, basically a bunch of defense items. It will just break the items and still hit the person, and then the Boomerang will come back to you. It's kind of crazy. Now, they did kind of, as I said, they nerfed it pretty hard. In this game, now, instead of it being a flat, you can throw it 3 times. Now you can, at minimum, throw it 2 times, but you can get a maximum of 4 throws, which sounds like a balanced trade, right? But if you're thinking about it, right, the most optimal thing to do with the Boomerang would be to aim it, right? Take the time to aim it, but you're going to have less throws then. However, on the opposite side, you're like, okay, well, I want to get the most throws possible with 4, right? So that means it's going to encourage you to spam the button instead of trying to strategically time when you're going to throw them. It's just a less skillful item now, and I feel like you get less out of it. Now, this goes for all the offense items you're going to hear about, except for one exception, which is the blue shell. Hit stun. Hit stun got nerfed in this game really bad. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically it's how long you can't move until, like, after you got hit by something, how long in between getting hit and being able to accelerate again. All items got that lowered except for the blue shell, which makes sense because, you know, it's 24 people, it's a lot more chaotic. But it makes certain items, like the Boomerang, all of them technically got nerfed. I don't think that part hits the Boomerang as much, but it's the fact that now the Boomerang obviously has this weird, like, oh, I can only throw it maybe twice or 4 times kind of shtick that makes it lower on this list for me compared to what it used to be in 8. But one last thing I do want to mention about the Boomerang is, this is a small complaint, but it's one that really does annoy me. In 8, if you threw the Boomerang, it would temporarily leave the item box in the top left, and you could grab more items, and then the Boomerang would just be, like, would go away, right? Like, it had been replaced. But on the other hand, you could grab like one single item, and then the Boomerang would come back to you, and you'd have it in your second slot instead. And it's a small thing, but now the Boomerang just stays in your hotbar, so it's taking up an item box slot, which is another thing that basically is going to encourage people to just spam it to get rid of it if they're trying to get mushrooms or something. So that's why this is here. It's okay now. I think balance-wise, this is one of the better ones they did a job on, but I do think the nerf still hits pretty hard. Once again, we're going to speed it up by kind of clumping 2 together here. We have the Ice Flower and the Fire Flower. The Fire Flower I'm going to use as a starting point, even though it's technically higher on the list, because that one was in 8, and in 8, I'll be honest, I disliked the Fire Flower a lot. Basically what it would come down to is I feel like I was either throwing it like I was getting 2 shots out of it because I was trying to hit like someone in front of me, or I would just spam it in a line and it hit maybe like 1 person. The fireballs were very tiny, they didn't go that far, and in general it was an item I never really wanted to get. If I got a fire flower, I would sooner just throw it behind me to mess people up than throw it in front of me to save a position. Now it's been changed slightly. The fireballs are now way bigger. You get less shots from them, but the hitboxes are way bigger and they travel further, which in my opinion is a good change. Maybe that's considered a nerf. I really don't know. I'm kind of sitting somewhere in the middle. But for me, I like the fire flower like this way more. Now, the reason I'm tying the ice flower into this is not just because they look very similar, but because they act very similar. The ice flower will basically shoot, again, these same like sized balls. I think you just get less like shots in this case. But what's interesting is the ice flower will, I believe, give them like a effect where like the character becomes like frost, like has frost on them, right? And I think that makes them slower for a few seconds, like acceleration wise. Now I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is just like a purely decorative like change, and I think maybe the ice flower doesn't shoot as far to compensate for that, right? Because obviously the fire flower doesn't slow them down as much as the ice flower, but in exchange the fire flower has better range or something like that. I'll be honest, the differences between them are so minuscule in my mind that's like, okay, like it's cool that the ice flower's in here from Wii, but they're basically back to back to me. Like there's very few differences, so we're just gonna put them here together where they belong. We went from one nerfed boy to another, probably again in the top 3 most nerfed from 8, we have the Boo. The Boo is an item that's changed a lot from 8, obviously. First off, the Boo was very good in 8, so them nerfing it is fine, and that makes sense to me perfectly. If I'm being perfectly honest, it makes sense to me. The way they did it, though, definitely makes it a worse item. So first off, now when you're in the Boo form, that makes you invulnerable while it's stealing an item. People can still see you, whereas in 8, they can only see the item that you were holding behind you. So that makes it, in my opinion, worse, because now you're giving, like, one of the cool things about the Boo is you gave other racers less information, right? When it comes to stealing items, it does that very similarly. It will always pick from people in front of you, and if there's no item to be taken, it'll give you a single mushroom. That works the exact same. The only other nerf it got besides, like, oh, okay, now I can see the other racer who went to a Boo, is that now you're invulnerable for way less time, which is definitely the biggest hit. Cool thing about the Boo was that it give you quite a bit of invulnerability, maybe some, like, the longest in the game. I think even, maybe about as long as a star, I'm not entirely sure, but it was a long time. Now the Boo does not keep you invulnerable for nearly as long, so you have to time it a lot more if you're trying to get, like, a shock dodge or something. It's definitely less good. It's still an item that is, like, okay, but, I mean, I take it over a lot of, obviously, all the other ones below it, for the most part, but it's one of those items where it's like, okay, I mean, thanks, I guess, I can make use of it, but definitely it's jarring to use this after playing 8 for 15 years. Now, I know I said some of the other ones were controversial, but I feel like this one's gonna be a hard one to hear for the casual fans. Next up, we have the Bullet Bill. Oh, the mighty, right? The Bullet Bill is a casual's best friend. It is their wet dream. This is what they are always going for in the item boxes. When you're playing with those 2 friends who play with Mario Kart way too much, and you're just the casual person, you're always hoping for the Bullet Bill, right? And the Bullet Bill got nerfed. It got nerfed real bad. So, starting off, we have the fact that the Bullet Bill is now an item that is not offensively capable anymore. In all past titles, if you were in wherever the line of sight for the Bullet Bill was, you'd get hit by it, and it would be like getting hit by a truck, right? You'd come to a complete stop. It would suck. It was something to keep an eye out for, but it was only something like that really mattered to like the middle of the crowd. But it would help the person who's playing the bullet, like who's in the bullet, get a little bit more of a breakaway, because it'd make people, have to keep an eye out for it, right? Because they didn't want to get hit. Now it doesn't do that. Now if you get hit by a bullet, it just bounces you away, which can be annoying, but it doesn't really do anything, so the Bullet Bill is not offensively capable at all. And then the second change is the Bullet Bill is way slower and goes for less distance than it used to. I'm guessing this change was done because, again, they want the crowd thing to be a big part of the game, but 2 is because just how the tracks are, tracks, their quotes, are laid out and traveling from track to track. I'm guessing there's something like that at play, but it definitely makes the item worse. It's an item that, again, still is one that you'll take when you get it, and you're probably happy to get. In fact, I would say it's probably, like, even above some of the ones that are coming up in terms of, oh, I'm happy I got this in its placements, but I don't know, man. The bullet, it's not really good. It doesn't really take cuts. It's not offensively capable. It's way slower. It goes less distance. All the stuff that made the Bullet Bill unique and a really good item have all just been toned down, and it's just kind of sad, so it's just going to go in this placement here with a teardrop in its eye. I think this one actually hurts the most when it comes to me being excited for new items. We have the Kamek, or the Kamek Sphere, or whatever. This one's a hard one to talk about just because there's so many different effects it does. So when you get this item, it will spawn Kamekin. They'll fly up to the front, like they'll just keep going along the track you're going, and they'll transform everyone above you, in front of you, like into a different character, which doesn't, it's just a visual change, but it does actually make it so that way if they're like drifting or charging up a jump, it'll cause that to cancel out, so that can be annoying. So you can actually just completely make sure that people can't take certain like shortcuts that are really big, depending on when you time it. But the main effect of it is, based on whatever track you're on, Kamek will do something slightly different in where you're on that track. So for example, if you're like in a water area, he'll make like jellyfish appear, which basically do nothing. They just make it so the person jumps up if they hit them. But then there are some that are really annoying. Like if you get Kamek and it turns people into Nabbit, that means that whoever's in front, maybe first and second, are going to have a really bad time. Because that makes a bunch of bombs spawn everywhere on the road. The reason I'm kind of torn on it is because, as I said, some of the effects are not nearly as good. But the other big thing for me is just the fact that it's really cool that it does all this unique stuff. But since it's not balanced around, like, okay, for example, it'll only affect the person, like as I said, at first or second most likely, with the bombs, or even sometimes just like boom boom that'll spawn in and only really affects one person. It's just small stuff like that that make this item not as good as I really want it to be. Granted, it'd be really strong if it affected everybody the same, right? Obviously, it should affect whoever's in front the most. That's kind of the point, but it should still affect, I feel like, more people slightly with the cool effects. Because if you're in 5th or 6th, you just transform, and then you're turned back in a few seconds, and that's all that happens. It's like, oh, what was the point of that? But I don't know. It's a cool item. I still really like it. The biggest sin it actually commits, though, is the fact that you have to use this to unlock all the enemy characters, and it all comes down to RNG if a CPU gets it, or if someone gets it and uses it at the right spot. So that's its biggest sin. So that's what's going down here, and we're just going to move on after that, because, man, I forgot. That is the worst thing about this item. Frick this item. Okay, I know I said a lot of things got nerfed from 8, but I feel like when it comes to the meta-defining items, this one was probably the biggest change, because it was the biggest item in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It was the most powerful, and that is the Shock. The Shock is a insane item that from 8 that was the whole meta. Basically, people would bag, which just means trying to stay in lower placements to get items, and basically everyone was praying for the Shock. The Shock gives you so much power. In 8, when you used it, everybody on the track, even if they were in front or behind you, would get shocked, which would make them lose all items, unless they, again, were in like a star, a bullet, or something that made them invulnerable. It would make them lose all their items. It would turn them small, which lowers your speed and acceleration, and makes it so people can squish you, and it's just terrible. And was so good at letting you smuggle certain items in if you got a shock dodge, or if your shock was your first item. It was such a big part of the meta for Mario Kart 8, and they changed it so big. So the first thing is, in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I believe you could have up to like 2 shocks on the field at once, which was insane, right? So someone could use a shock, and if you were like invulnerable for the time, like you were in a star or something, and you pulled a shock, you could immediately use it back to back, and it was insane. Now only 1 shock can be on the field at once, which I think is a good change. I think that makes it an even better item from that standpoint. But the problem is they made the actual offense part of it way worse. So the shock now will only hit people, I believe, in front of the person who uses it, not people behind. Which is fine, I guess, right? Like, you're mostly going to you want to affect the people in front of you most anyway. But the biggest deal is that now you get shocked, which, again, basically makes you come to a complete stop. But the whole being small thing is mostly just now a visual effect. Like, you're small for a few seconds, and then not even. Like, I think in 8, for example, you were small, if you were in first, right, and you were shocked, you were small for probably 5 or 6, maybe even 7 seconds. I can't say for sure. In World, I think you're small for maybe, like, in terms of actionable seconds, I think you're small for maybe, like, 2. Maybe. Like, you are small for basically no time at all, to the point where it barely affects you. It's not nearly as good as it used to be from that standpoint. It's still a good item and gives you power, just not as much as it used to. So, it's still good. It's still an item that you're happy to get and can make use of. It's just not as good, so for me, I'm kind of in this weird, like, it's in the middle for me, you know what I mean? So that's why it's here. Now we have the feather, and I'll be honest, this one has changed the most, I think, while I was contemplating my, like, enjoyment of the items. So the feather originated in the original Mario Kart, and it was kind of niche, it didn't really do much. Then it came back in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as a battle mode exclusive, and once again, it didn't really do anything. It allowed you to jump over certain walls, which was like, yeehaw. But the bigger thing was that if, like, in Balloon Battle or Coin Battle, you could use it close enough to somebody and steal a balloon or steal coins or something, right? And it was okay. It was not, like, game-changing by any means. But now with all the trick system and shortcuts and be able to go over, the feather is a lot more versatile. It can allow you to do a lot more things, take new shortcuts, and it's really cool for that. It's also nice because you can really only get this higher up, and it isn't okay, like, item to have higher up, because you can also use it sort of as a defense from things like red shells that are thrown. If you time it right, you can just jump over them. It's not as good as a defense as like other ones like the bananas and stuff, but I think since it's so versatile in maneuverability and can still be used as a defense, I would much rather have this than like a green shell in first, right? But comparatively, depend on the situation and what track you're on. But I do think the feather is actually quite a good item. Not to mention that they also buffed just how high you jump. In 8, it wasn't that much. You would jump only a little bit, like you barely get off the ground. In World, you get a lot more height, which is a good and bad thing. It's good because, of course, you want to gain height. That's the whole point of the feather. It's bad because sometimes that can really slow you down depending on when you use it. So it just comes down to getting used to it, knowing when to use it. So it's a skill-based item. I won't deny that. But I think because of its possibilities, it is a good item. One that I'm happy to get anyway. Okay, we're going to speed this up because I'm sure you all don't want to be here all day. Next up, we have the red shell. Who doesn't love the red shell? It's basically just a green shell, except it'll auto-home onto whoever's in front of you, the closest to you. It is very good. It can also be used as a defense. It is a very threatening item. You want to get this. The red shell, it's never really super bad to get a red shell. I don't have much to say about it. There are some other items you may want in certain situations better, but I think it's a good offense and defense item. Above that, we have the Bob-omb. One of the biggest changes from, actually one of the changes I actually really enjoy. So the Bob-omb in older games was you could throw it forward, you can throw it backward, you can still do that, allowing you to get bomb snipes. It's really good for being able to, drop behind you like at a really tight corridor and just make people nervous. But one thing that really sucked about the Bob-omb in past games was defense. If you were holding it behind you and someone ran into you or a red shell hit you, there was a high chance you blow yourself up and it would just basically end up hitting you anyway, because again, you got blown up by your own bomb. So it wasn't that great for defense. It was basically just an okay. It was a really good offense if you threw it behind you, and okay if you threw it forward, and a terrible defense. Though, at least it could be a defense item, right? But in World, they changed it. So now, if something is to hit you or a red shell hits you and you have the bomb on you, it will no longer blow you up. You are immune to your own Bob-omb, so long as you don't throw it forward and then run into it, I think. Which is an insanely good change that makes this Bob-omb way better. Otherwise, this would have been lower, but I think now, actually, it's a really good item. The only thing that I don't like about it is now how it bounces when you throw it forward, but I don't know if that's an actual, like, nerf, or if that's just a change to the physics engine, and I'm just not used to it yet, so it's just gonna go here. Spoiler, I guess, the last new item introduced in this game is the tour items, or the food bags, or whatever. I'm just gonna clump them all together because they basically all play the exact same. It's an item that you use that will, depending on your character, give you a costume, but the main mechanic is just that it gives you a speed boost, and it comes in 3 tiers. If you're higher up, the less likely you are to get a better tier item. If you're in first, you can only get the lowest tier. It's nice. It can allow you to do some small cuts, even in higher placements like first, but it's not as good as a mushroom, which I think is balanced. It's cool that you can get costumes from it. I don't really know if it makes sense, and it's kind of annoying to unlock them, but it's unique enough. The main thing is just, it's nice to have an item that is balanced that a person in first can use to potentially do some small cuts, because again, it gives you some off-road abilities like the mushroom, but just doesn't last as long or as much speed. It's an alright item. Since it's not in the item box pool, it's its own little thing. I think it's one that I can't say, oh, you'd rather have this or that. You have to go to your way for it most of the time, like a little bit. It's usually in its own little area, so I think this item is just fine. It's going to go here. Next, we have the Super Horn. Of course, this one's got to be here, right? It's the item that allows you to destroy the blue shell or the spiny shell, and it's really nice for that. That hasn't gone unchanged. Basically, the only nerf here is that, of course, hit stun got nerfed, but it's basically the exact same for the most part. The only other thing that I don't like change-wise, there's 2 things. One is that the Super Horn is way more common in like 4th, 5th, and 6th now, and even like 3rd and 2nd, which is kind of crazy. Like, it's a little too common, I think, in those places. I get they want more people to use it as an offense, not just a defense for blue shell, but I think they should tone that down a little bit. And then the second thing is that now, similar to the boomerang, when you use the Super Horn, it doesn't immediately disappear from your item box like it used to, so now you have to time using it if you want to get rid of it for a better item. Like, you have to you get used to timing that a little differently and use it way earlier, so that's a small complaint, but it's one that I think is noteworthy. There's not much to say here. It's a really good defense. It's a decent offense. It's an item you are dreaming of in first, and in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th you could make use of it, but you'd probably rather have something else. Another big nerf, but maybe not like as important to the game in terms of its nerf, is the star. The star is really good. It gives you invincibility. Running into people will knock them over. It lets you go off-road. It gives you decent speed. it's really good. The main problem is, of course, hit stun now got lowered, and the other thing is you're not nearly as fast in the star. I also don't think it lasts as long, but that doesn't... I don't know that for certain, because it still lasts a decent amount of time. You're definitely not as fast as you used to be with it, though, so that's why it's lower down than maybe you'd think. I personally would rather have a star than a bullet bill almost 90% of the time, so that's why it's so much higher than that, just because I'd rather be able to take shortcuts, especially in this game that's so shortcut heavy, right? But I can see why some people may disagree with that. I find it very nice. The only big problem is, of course, you're only going to get this in lower placements, so there's other things you may want instead, so it's kind of somewhere in the middle for me in terms of what would I want this over others, but I think it's still a good item, hence why it's higher up. And the last item that wasn't introduced here but was brought back is the Mega Mushroom brought from Wii, which really excited me because I really liked the Mega Mushroom in Wii, even though it was kind of eh. The Mega Mushroom is a lot better here for a few different reasons. So the first thing is that now the Mega Mushroom makes you invulnerable to everything. In Wii, you could get hit by bullets still and stars and whatnot, but you actually are invulnerable now fully. Another thing is if you got struck by lightning in Wii while in the Mega Mushroom form, you would get shrunk down to medium size, which is okay, but it sucked if you were going off-road because, like all the other mushrooms, it lets you go off-road, right? Gives you a speed boost. So it could still mess you up and feel like a target shock, and it was a mess. That got changed. The only real nerf to the Mega Mushroom is it may last slightly less time, though I actually can't tell it for sure, but one definite nerf is similar to the Super Horn and the, my favorite, the Boomerang. It is one that when you consume it, it doesn't actually disappear from your item box. It stays there until a timer goes away, and then it'll disappear as you get small again. So, again, if you're trying to get rid of it for something else or chain it, you do have to keep that in mind. So that is a small change that is good. But I actually prefer this over the Star, just because I feel like the Mega Mushroom now is slightly more common than it used to be in Wii, and you'll find it in slightly higher placements. So that's why I like it just a slight bit more. Then we have the triple red shells. Similar to the single red shell, there's basically nothing to say. It's just more chances to use red shell, but unlike the green shell, it's basically just a guarantee hit. 3 guarantee hits in a row. It's insanely good. The only complaint I have about it is actually how good it is, and it's the fact that getting this in second, like in third and fourth, seems a little crazy as commonly as it does. Making it a chance thing that's kind of rare, sure, but like it seems pretty common. Maybe that's just my luck though, right? There's not much to say about it. Of course, the triple red shell's gonna be higher up, right? It's not like it was in Wii where the red shells suck. The red shells are really good, so they are going to be higher up. If you get triple red shells, you're going to be causing some damage. Hoo baby, now we're to the top 3, and if you know all the items, it's going to be, basically all 3 of them are very similar, so I'm going to loop them together here at the end. We have the single mushroom, second we have the triple mushroom, and in first we have the gold mushroom. Now, starting off, we're going to say that the mushroom did get buffed, at least from what I've noticed. The mushroom, I believe, now lasts longer, the speed effect, not by much. But the other thing, too, is I believe you actually get better off-road traction than you used to. You'll still, I think it's something like that. Like, you do better off-road now than you used to, right? Slightly. Now, those changes aren't big. What is big, though, is how this game is played, the meta, right? This game is all about going off-road, trying to take these shortcuts, doing these wild and crazy things. Being able to negate off-road, like slowdown, and mushrooms can allow for even, like, all these unique tricks and stuff, and shortcuts. Mushrooms are a big part of the meta. So that's the main reason why now they're so high for me, because mushrooms will change how you play this game entirely, right? Of course, you can't use them as defense, right? For the most part, outside of the blue shell. But they are still really good. They are phenomenal. There are many times where I'd rather have a mushroom than, like, triple red shells, right? A single mushroom or triple red shells sometimes. Not all the time, sometimes. Just because it's like, oh, I can do this really cool shortcut that saved me a lot of time, or get me ahead of some people. Or, as I said, being able to dodge blue shells. The order of them, I feel like, is pretty self-explanatory. Single mushroom is a single use of it. Triple mushroom is 3 uses of it, and then a gold shroom is just a lot more uses. I will say that the triple mushroom, of course, does benefit others. If they run into you, they get a small boost, but it's not that big. It's a small little thing. The gold mushroom, the only thing that kind of sucks about it is, again, like the Mega Mushroom and many before it, it's one that, well, this was in the old games too, though, so it's not like it's a nerf to this game. It's that as you use it, of course, it's going to be in your, like, item box, so you can't swap it out for something unless, like, you know, you wait and use it and time it properly, so it can be kind of annoying. But, like, a gold mushroom is still so good. I did hear people saying that they thought the gold shroom's time was lowered, and maybe... But, as I said, now with you getting more speed from it, and just how big the off-game, like, traction, like, change is, I think that it's still probably the best item in the game, at least from my opinion. When I'm in, like, 11th and 12th, and I get a gold shroom, I'm happier than if I got a bullet, because I know I can do cuts with it, and I can do a lot of great stuff with it. Now, again, that's not consistent. The cool thing about Mario Kart is that it's always it depends, you know? It's always changing depending on what track you're on, what character, who's in front of you, what items are around you, and that's what makes it such an enjoyable game. And so I think even like a list like this that I just presented to you could often change based on situations, right? There are times where I'd want, you know, the Boo or the Shock or the Kamek or the triple green shells. The only thing I know is there's definitely not a time I'd ever want the blooper. I still hate that guy, so we're gonna end it on some blooper hate here. But that is the list. So I'm going to, I guess, pose the question to you guys. If you have played World or just seen footage, from your opinion, what are your favorite or least favorite items from how they changed things? Are you happy with some of the changes? Do you dislike them? I'm very curious just to kind of see what the general consensus is about the new item balance. I think in general, Nintendo did okay with it. There are some things, like, I understand nerfing the Boomerang Flower, I understand nerfing the Boo, but then there's some that I don't really get, like, why did we nerf the Bullet Bill so heavily? It's just kind of like small stuff like that, so I'm kind of torn in the middle. I think Nintendo did an alright job with it. I was definitely hoping maybe for a little bit better balance, but the game's still new. We probably will see a few updates, even if it's just small stuff or patches and stuff, or balancing. Who knows? But as of now, launch day, like week, month, whatever, this is my list. So again, I'd like to hear what you guys all think in the description, or comments, or whatever the kids are saying it nowadays. You can see why I write scripts a lot, because this is what you're left with otherwise. Either way, thank you all so very much for watching, and as always, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. I hope to see you guys in the next one.